that's the key to this, is that I love to get into the parks, and love to get into the specifics of it, and those kinds of
I'll
things.
talk to you privately. I'd like to make a motion that this report be included, what goes to council at the end of our whole ad hoc committee.
Second?
I'll second.
Vice Chair Holder,
Yes.
committee members Kevin Nash,
Abstain.
Linda Dixon,
Yes.
Patricia Hedges,
Yes.
Kurt Higgins,
Abstain.
John Padilla,
Yes.
Bill Schwab.
Yes.
All right, we will move on to discussion item number 2, update on our trail maintenance plan.
Middle.
Yeah, the bottom one.
Bob?
There we go. Fancy technology.
So where IT money is going.
Oh, $400,000. I team did that.
Thank you, committee. This trail presentation is kind of follow-up to the one I gave a few weeks ago, a few meetings ago, maybe just has expanded a little bit more based on questions and comments that were raised. So it's basically going to look at the trail fencing and the trail material. First thing I kind of asked myself is what is the equestrian trail there for, the purpose of the trail? And it's basically there to delineate the trail space. It provides a barrier between the trail and the adjacent street. And it probably the bigger part is it kind of gives the community its desired look. It pretty much, you know, whenever everybody thinks of Norco and we talk about the community, we think of the trail system that always comes up. The characteristics of the trail fence that we are trying to gather is there's multiple things. The trail material itself, and this is for the fence, has to be rigid enough to provide some measure of protection where, I mean, you don't lean against it and it falls over. I mean, we don't want just, you know, a piece of string out there. But then it also has to be flexible enough that if a car does hit it, we don't want it to be like a wall where it stands and it could, you know, do more damage to a pedestrian or a motorist in a car. So there has to be a little bit of flexibility. We want it to be of a height that a person on horseback or even somebody walking along the trail have a sense of security that there is this delineation between the street and the trail and for the horse and rider. And then finally, you got to be able to see it. With no speed lights in this town, you want to know, you don't want it to be that nobody sees it until they hit it in, say, a nighttime condition. I'm listing here a few of the trail alternatives that we're looking at. This is our current standard. This is the wood fence that we have, the current wood circular rail fencing.
I noticed you took a very good picture too. All of it's in really good condition.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Water in front of my house.
I'm kind of breaking these into pros and cons. So this is our current standard, and the pros here, as I've listed them, would be, this is our rural look. This is what pretty much says Norco. And it's the price is $9 linear foot. That includes the labor and materials for installation. If we buy it, just like when the Public Works guys replace it, we can get it, we purchase it for about $4.82 a linear foot. I'm saying approximately because depending on how you want to say it, there's, I mean, I went in the section, you got one post and then 2 rails, and then the next post would be for the next section. section, so depending on how you want to say it, but it's basically $5 a linear foot. The problem we have with this trail fencing is that it does have a high failure rate. Being wood, it's a natural material. We get a lot of breakage, we get, it warps. You can see this one is already a little bit warping. It gets splinters, it fades. This has a little bit of fading on it due to the watering of the foliage down here. It just, what was it?
I said, how do you see fading in white? This is a white fence.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's been discolored
I
because of
think it
all.
was brown.
Yeah,
Now
it's
it's yellow.
Is that white? Browning green, is that kind of green?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost
it's
like
it's
birch.
treated with material.
Okay.
With the, if it just gets natural, like rainwater, it doesn't discolor like this, but, that's probably the least of the worries is the discoloration. And it doesn't have a huge life. Basically what we get, we say 10 to 15 year life on the trail fence. Some of it doesn't last that long, but you know, some of it we can squeak out with even a little bit longer than 10 years. This is actually a fencing in Norco. It's over by the Equestrian, over by Del Mar and stuff. This, Sundance. This fence was put in the late 90s, and this is still how it looks today. This is what we call the 2-rail vinyl fencing. It has the same unit cost for labor and materials to put in as the wood fence. Little, just slight,
Expensive.
yeah, it's almost the exact same price for material only. The benefits though, no rotting. I mean, pretty much probably everybody knows what the PVC or the vinyl fence looks like. It doesn't rot, it's not subjected to termites, little sagging, no warping, cracking, fading. I mean, white is white. Has a much higher year of life to it, and it's very visible. Great high visibility in areas of where it's pretty dark. What I would call the negative part to this, and I should have put the Norco rural, because if it's in another area, people do consider that, you know, any kind of equestrian fencing like that to have a rural look to it, but it's not what is noted usually as the Norco rural look. And then another type of fencing we do have in town here, and this is over by Pacer Park. This is the HDPE, or the high density polyethylene pipe fencing. And this is manufactured to make it look like the wood rail fencing. The pros again to this one are that it's, being that it's man-made, it doesn't rot, doesn't have termites, the cracking, chipping, fading. Does have, again, the high life, the 20 to 30 year life on it. A little bit less on the visibility, but I didn't know what to put that if it was a negative, but I think it's just, it has a slight sheen to it, so it is a little bit higher visibility than the wood fence. And it does give us that rural Norco look. The downside to this one is right here. It is significantly more expensive than either of the two that we just mentioned, the wood or the 2-rail vinyl fence, where the cost to manufacture, and usually it shouldn't be this, you might ask the question, why is the other man-made one so much more expensive? This one, we've had a manufacturer work on this to make it look rural. They've put a texture to it, they've put multiple
It was like
colors.
wood grooves and
Yeah, they made it look grainy. They've added multiple colors into it to make it, you know, kind of, so it's not just a solid brown.
More natural.
They tried to make it look natural. So it does have a higher unit cost for the material, but it's, if you look at the difference between the labor material and just the materials, it's, you know, the same price to put in the ground as you dig a hole and you put it in the ground. So to install it is not labor intensive. And one of the other negative aspects of it is it does warp, and it will pop out if you have, you know, kids sitting on it, which is, like I said, this one I've heard that there's, it's next to a bus stop, so there has been some sagging on it, and it's, they will pop out if, you know, kids, you know, bounce on them and jump on the rails.
I have two questions.
Sure.
On this particular type. Was it ever priced out without the natural grain effect and whatnot? Was there a standard, just circular, kind of looks like wood?
Honestly, I don't know if they did that. Kathy was
Kathy's not-
here, she
I know
could
Kathy's
probably
not
tell
here,
you.
Wait, you've got somebody here that was on the.
Oh, Glenn, and that was gonna be my second remark, is you had also mentioned in the past that the posts were maybe not installed as closely as they could be, and that might prevent some of the warping. Was
That's
that
correct.
this type of
The
fencing?
original engineering on that type of fence was like 5 feet
5 or 6
apart.
feet?
And in order to make it look like it fit in Norco, they extended that out to 8 feet. Well, what that did is that caused the rails to sag. Originally, that fence was engineered to be black. And it actually had a wire embedded in it so it could be electric. But the manufacturer made it especially for Norco. And the first ones that he made were not the grain, and they were just a little bit of a tan color,
Right.
and the cost was less expensive. The other thing that drove the cost up on this too is because of the sag, they had to reinforce inside, remember?
Yeah, they put like a X in the,
A square
yeah.
inside, and that drove the cost up. And then the city council looked at the original brown, and they didn't like that because they wanted it to look more like a wood grain.
Right.
Well, after they did all that and it came back, the price was so expensive, they just kind of shelved it because it was so expensive.
And I mean, you could put the posts at a closer spacing, I mean, you could do that, but obviously
That would
your cost would
increase
go
your
up.
cost.
Yeah.
But we might be able to eventually relook at it and maybe
Yeah,
not be
I
so
have
wood
a
grain.
comparison chart
fancy.
here that we can look at and you'll see, I mean, maybe what isn't as bad as it looks. So here's the, what I've done here, and you have the sheet in your handout. I've done some cost comparison on the different fences. And what I first put here is replace all the existing fences. That goes back to the report that I did a few meetings ago, where we talked about the linear footage of the existing trail, the existing segments of trail that have fencing. And I just want to point out here, this excludes all the LMDs. I took all the LMD fencing out of here because we're basically at the current time, the LMD fencing is dealt with through the, it's paid through the LMD. So this would be just the fencing that is all exclusive of LMDs. So we have the we have a linear footage of 233,000 linear feet of fencing, and I put the cost comparison with wood fencing, the 2-rail, and the HDPE. And here's the, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, this is the one, the chart you have will have a different number right there. I had the material only, so it is it's $22 per linear foot, and I did update it in every one of the charts that you have. So basically, if we just took the existing fencing that's in place today and said, let's replace it. If we just did the wood fencing, there's the $9 per linear foot. There's your cost if we did the 233,000 feet in 1 year. There's 2-rail, obviously it's the same unit price, so it'd be the same price. The HDPE is actually 5.1 million, I think it's 3.9 there. However, when we look at the life, and I think that's what we kind of need to look at also in the consideration is the wood fencing, when we say it has a 10-year life, so well then we're going to replace it in 10 years, and then in 20 years, and then in 30 years. So I carried it out to 30 years, and if you look here then at the end, is you've replaced the wood fencing 3 times. So you're at your life of 30 years on that wood fence. The cost of the wood fencing is $8 million, where the 2-rail vinyl is at $2 million, and then the HDPE is actually $5.1 million. So, I mean, yes, these all look bad, and the HDPE pipe or fencing looks really bad there, but if it lasts all the way out there, it's not as, it's still significantly cheaper than the wood fencing. And so I kind of gave you a bunch of comparisons here. Here's if we decided to install fencing in the backyard trails, because none of our backyard trails have the fencing. So again, same comparisons going through. We have the wood fencing on that is the 1 million. We've got the 2-rail vinyl is 267, and the HDPE is actually 650,000 for the replacing of the installation for backyard trails. Instill fencing, the areas where we don't have fencing, and again, you guys can go through, here's the comparison again. And then if we wanted to break it down, here's the fencing that we have right now that has the rating of 1, which if you remember, 1 was on the bad side, 5 would have been, you know, the good trail fencing. If we just said, let's do that, we've only got the 59,000 linear feet, so that would be like what a recommended CIP would be. And then here's the numbers. We have the 2.1 million for the wood, 500,000 for the 2-row vinyl, and then 1.3 million, and that'd be over 30 years for there. And then, then I added, if we replace the ones with rating of 2 and then the ratings of 3 and above, where this we probably wouldn't even start for, 5 years, so you would carry that
Real
out.
quick, one thing, on the backyard fencing, there's very few backyard fencing that I know of, that most of the backyards are already chain link.
Mhm.
Why do we need fencing if
Well,
they're chain
and
link?
that's, we don't have it, but Councilman Higgins had asked if, at one point, if any of it had trail fencing, and for the most part, yes, it usually goes between backyards, but there are some areas that, a piece of fencing might be there. So all I did was I included it, doesn't mean you have to put any fencing there, but just to give you relevance that none of it right now has any
I
fencing.
just
in
wanted
it.
to clarify it.
Yeah. All right, so, and I also want to point out, right here, no inflation. For the next 30 years, all these prices were stagnant, so they haven't changed. So obviously, it would only go up. But I think you need to consider what the inflation is, but you know what, you can see what the numbers are. Then we move on to the trail material, so we were asked to look at that. Our current trail material is decomposed granite, or as everybody calls it, the DG. The current city standard 700 calls out for a 12-foot wide trail and a depth of 4 inches of compacted DG to 95%. If we were to build a new trail, that, is how we build it, or if somebody digs it up, or, if we're replacing something, that's what we want to see. To put that in context as far as, how much DG do you need to fill, a 12-foot wide trail 4 inches deep? And I gave you these before, but I'm just going to reiterate. A truck and transfer, which is usually the truck and it has like a trailer behind it, that can hold about 25 tons of DG. Currently, we are paying just a little, I just said 10, but it's like $10.06 a ton, plus tax, but that's delivered to City Hall or to our Public Works yard. With the truck and transfer being 25 tons and a 12-foot wide trail, I broke it down into a few categories here, so to give you some relevance of how much a 25 tons can do. If you spread it 1 inch thick, you could do about 490 linear feet of a 12-foot trail, and that would be almost 6,000 square feet. There's your unit cost per square foot. If we did 2 inch, there's your unit cost, and then if we did the full-on 4 inch, you only get about 123 linear feet of trail done, 12-foot wide, or almost 1,500 square feet. It's about 18 cents a square foot. The Public Works staff does do a lot of trail replacement, and we just were doing a lot with the rain this past week. They're averaging about 2,000 tons a year. That's not, to say that they're doing, 50 tons every month. It's flexible. During the summer, when we don't have rain, there's not a lot of trail replacement because, the trail gets replaced when we have erosion, when water hits it and it erodes. So during the winter months are high months that we do a lot of replacement. And I'm saying public works staff because we don't build trails, we maintain them. Any new track that comes in, home that comes in, it is their requirement to build the trail. So this is what our maintenance cost is. We, with the 2,000 tons a year, to average it out, just to give you some kind of relevance, if you did 2 inches, because obviously we're not building trail, 2 inches would cover 235,000 square feet of a 12-foot trail, or about almost 20,000 linear feet of trail.
One quick question.
Sure.
Now, the way that post is embedded, there was a suggestion made to me at one time, that is gonna rot real quick. Whether you put it in concrete, it's still gonna rot because the weather is gonna get to it. Why can't we make a city standard to drop that into a tube above the grade so that it will not weather and rot at the root of the post?
Well, if you put it in a tube, I mean, unless you did some kind of water treatment around the tube,
You know,
You're
you
still
put a
gonna
French
get-
drain,
pardon me?
a French drain.
And
At
then
the
what
bottom
happens,
of the
what's
concrete.
gonna happen to your cost of that? If you're just, every
Yeah.
time you do something different to it, your
I'm
cost is
just asking the
just.
question because those are gonna rot out, they're gonna have to be replaced. So what's the cost of replacement versus the initial cost of protecting?
I have never even considered that, but I mean, obviously, we can do anything, it's just, it's gonna increase your cost on
In
on
the initial
the
installation.
initial installation.
I
And
agree.
the, like I said, if we put a tube in the ground that this went into, water would still get into that tube.
But it will, if you do gravel at the bottom, it's a French drain,
Yeah.
it'll drain out through the ground.
Yeah, and again, there was your cost.
Okay,
That's a lot
but
of,
it's going into a tube, so if that breaks off, all you gotta do is pull that up. You don't have to pull the concrete up, you don't have to
well,
pull.
I'm not saying it can't be done,
No.
but I'm saying it increases your cost.
Well, but it also, if you encases in concrete per the city standard that we have now, you gotta pull out the concrete and then replace the concrete and replace the whole pole. If you put a tube in there, you pull this out, you drop a new post in, you put a nail in it or whatever, a screw, and it's maintenance that I'm looking at.
You still have to eliminate though your parkway irrigation or something because your rails are falling apart too. So I just.
Well, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, well, that's.
But again, those type of ideas I think are all good to try suggestions and see how it works.
So this was an idea given to me, and I can't remember who, I think it was maybe Ted.
No,
No?
because I don't put concrete around.
John,
Wooden
what would a
post
French
down
drain
below.
look like?
I'm sorry?
What would a French drain look like around something like that?
No, well, you couldn't do a full French drain because the gravel would disintegrate, but if you did a concrete with just kind of a tube down and then had the gravel down below, that's what I'm saying. So if the rain goes in, it's just gonna go down into the ground through the gravel. If that's what they use for a French drain, to get rid of the water.
Have you seen the ground at 2 feet deep?
I could draw it up for you, I'll give you.
No, I get it, that's interesting.
Any other questions? So then I have one more slide here on, this is the alternative trail material that we just installed over on Corona at the driveways where the encroachments were taken out. This is the wax-coated aggregate. They use DG and it's coated with an aggregate. You dig out the 4 inches, wet the ground, place this material in, and then it does get rolled with a heavy vibrating roller. Actually, I don't use vibrating, it's just a roller. And so the pros of this one is that it is erosion resistant. We've had good luck with it through the past rains we just had. It's slip resistant. I've actually had a few people call and say that it's actually very good. Whether they've rolled their garbage cans on it and it's wet, they like it. And a lot of people saying it's horse friendly, and I can see we are getting a little bit of wear with the horse hooves, but I can't tell if that was just like the day that it was put in, but it is holding. The cons about this, or the negative part, is that it's not something that you or I could just go out and put in, because it does need to be installed by professionals with the appropriate equipment. I don't think we all have a, 5,000-pound roller sitting in our backyard that we could put this in. And it is very expensive. I mean, if you look at that cost, the DG costs of, the 9 to 15 cents a square foot. I mean, here your material alone was almost $8, and this is what our contractor installed it for. So I mean, I don't know if a general contractor out there, doing this as a business, it could be more, but this is what we got it installed for. So it is quite expensive. However, if we don't have to replace DG, if we have a big rain and we're replacing the DG like 4 or 5 times a year, this could be a good product to replace it with. So we are monitoring these driveways over on Corona to see how this lasts, and we'll have some comparison information, and we'll first take it to the Streets and Trails Commission, and we'll kind of dissect it and come up with a recommendation to then take to the council at some time in the near future. Well, not near future, probably about 6 months from now.
Lori?
Yeah.
2 ways.
The material like this that goes across the trail, since it's the residents who have to maintain their trails, wouldn't the residents bear the cost of this? Should they decide to put it across the trail?
The way that the code currently is written, the residents have responsibility for removing trash and debris in their trail, and then I think trimming trees up to 8-foot height, the sucker growth. But if there's any broken trail fence, the city does that.
Right.
They call us. If they need DG, they call the city.
Right.
They're not required
Yeah.
to.
I was just wondering
If
about.
this is an approved source though, they got an encroachment permit, there's a spec they would have to follow.
Yeah, say you wanted this out in front of your house, for whatever reason, you could pull an encroachment permit to put it in, but we would not issue it as an owner builder. It would
Okay.
have to be,
But this would be at residents' expense
if they wanted to.
to go,
Yes.
to do this across the trail?
Yes, if they wanted to, I mean, we did this because the city removed a lot of the trail
Right.
encroachments, and we want to see how it holds up. If it's, right now, no residents can put it in. This was put in for a city
This is
project.
something that you would go to council or Streets and Trails to get as an approved
Yes.
material to put
Streets and
across the trail?
Trails has approved it as an alternative material in a trial location. So
Looks pretty
pending,
good.
so far so good, but like I say, I mean, a month is a short time, so we want to see what it holds up to, And the one positive thing about this type of material is, say we did get some wear on it, it is one of those that you can scarify the surface again, wet it and recompact it. You don't have to rip it out. You can use that same one if you got, for some reason, if somebody came through with like you were putting in a sewer line or something and you got a line through it, you could then scarify it and recompact it.
Well, how does this compare? I know it's not the same place for it, but, you used a different type of material at the Rite Aid on the far driveway.
The Rite Aid is stamped asphalt
That's the other driveway.
on Valley View.
Correct. And
Yeah,
how does this
Valley
compare
View-
to that price-wise?
Sounds amazing.
That seemed to have
This is
really
cheaper.
stayed a long time.
Yeah, this is cheaper. We've done 2 different products at Rite Aid on Valley View. We tried a product that was put in for free by somebody trying to sell us. We said, let's try it. It didn't really hold up. It was DG, and then they sprayed it with something, and it did not hold up. We then put in stamped
I think
asphalt.
that's the last.
That's the current one, and that's what it's asphalt.
More expensive.
It's a lot more expensive. That's gonna be, I think that's like about $20 a square foot because it's the asphalt, and then they come back and they actually stamp it, and then they spray it with the coating.
Okay, thank you.
We have this at Pikes Peak at the very north end now near Mount Verdi, where it slopes off the trail quite a bit down to transition to the street. So we did a section of that with this product, and it has held the time with very little rutting. I mean, and Lori's absolutely right. light scarification. I think the spec calls for 1/8 inch. And then, wet it and roll it, and then you're back to normal. If you cut through it, then you have to fill in, but it's a very good product. I think definitely is worth looking more into for longevity of trails and stuff, particularly on those that are in the steep grades.
This is what they're calling the next generation of the stay lock, which is, I'm sure everybody's heard of that, that's out in front of the fire station. I think the only negative thing that I've ever heard about the stay lock is the fire truck tires, the black kind of bled through, so it looks black now. But the product is still, I've not heard of any complaints on the product itself, but obviously the fire station's in a flat area. This is a fairly flat driveway, but there are some significantly steeper driveways, and that's what we're kind of looking at. But we wanted to see, does it work in flat application? Does it work, does it work good from 2 to 4%, but anything over 4%, it doesn't work anymore. So we're looking at the different slopes that it is.
It really came through the rain really well.
Yeah, that's, I've heard from a few
And
people.
also that section that you did is really, I looked at it too, and it looks really good.
So, I think.
What do you do if like you get a rut just before like the concrete? Do you just bring like a bag of it and put it in, or what do you do?
No, we're hoping we don't get that, but when that happens, if it happens, I would think we'd have to, because I don't think it has a binding mechanism to, it's not like something that's going to glue on to something else. You're going to have to scarify it and compact.
And that's why it's got the jagged edge, because it just kind of.
Oh, this was the day they put it in. That's where I think you get the asphalt. Yeah, it's not, that was just a little overage.
No,
I thought I would like it to be a little
messy.
neater.
Yeah, me too.
So that's my presentation on the fencing and the DG. So if you have any other questions, or if there's something I missed, what was requested of me, I can try to answer the questions.
Are you going to be submitting the same thing to council as far as the various the various trail fencing? I know that in the past, they want to keep it Norco rural, but for the cost of money, I would hope that they would look at the 2-rail fence,
Well, that's why I think.
or the third option.
The HUPE. That's what I would think when we gather all the stuff and we make a presentation to council, that they would look at, when it gets to the trail part, they'll either go, that trail fence is too expensive, let's cut it out of our budget. They might go, no matter what cost, we love the wood fence, we're gonna pay for, I'm just giving them
That's what's
the
happened in the past, I
information.
know. Yeah.
And what they do with it is their call.
But it would be good to present it, so they have
Oh,
options.
I think that's what we will. I can, like I said, this I tried to make pretty for, a presentation, but I think in the final report, we'll just probably have something more, just like that, with the unit costs, and say what does it cost for the next 30 years if we stay with the wood fencing.
There's already been some discussion of cost savings, I think, you had in your report that